all this week we've been hearing about the devastating impact of insecurity in Nigeria and the rising tensions that are forcing people into a war in their own country. Every day there are new threats of terror, and as the threat levels go up, so does faith in the Tinubu administration go down. But the government is trying to reassure Nigerians, and just a few hours ago, news broke that President Tinubu has approved sweeping changes in Nigeria's military leadership. General Christopher Musa is out as the Chief of Defense Staff, and the President has named General Olufemi Oluyede as his replacement. Major General W. Shaibu is the new Chief of Army Staff. Air Vice Marshal S.K. Aneke takes over as Air Chief, and Rear Admiral I. Abbas is the new Naval Chief. But Major General E.A.P. Undiandeye remains unchanged as Chief of Defense Intelligence. So is this likely to make any difference to what many see as the worsening security situation in Nigeria? Well, in a moment, I'll be joined by our panel of analysts who will be assessing this and other developments as we look back at the week that was. But first, let's speak with Arise Chief of Correspondence, Ferdinand Duruoha, who was until recently Arise Defense Correspondent. So good to see you, Ferdinand. So as the smoke clears over this sweeping change of the military top brass, what do we know so far about why General Christopher Musa and the other service chiefs have been fired?
Well, thank you so much, Charles. And well, earlier today, well, one of the spokesperson of the president did put out a statement informing us of that sweeping change. But then, quite interesting, I want to say, well, that there is a whole lot of information contained in exactly what was not said. And that's because, well, a couple of just about a week ago, well, talking about the 4th of October to be precise, well, there was that information that did come out from the Director of Defense Information about some very senior military officers not being very happy with proceedings. Particularly, it was said that it was about they were disgruntled about the examinations and not passing examinations, and then somehow, well, some people thought that they needed to be questioned for it. Well, Nigerians didn't really buy that, and a couple of days later, well, we heard about there were actually reports about strike. I beg your pardon, about a coup, and sort of since then we've had a very, very agitated military sphere with lots of people asking questions, and the changes today somehow you want to say perhaps confirms those rumors or perhaps reports of perceived coup. Well, for the military, well, they have sort of handled it well by not putting out too much, although, like I said, well, some of the information not revealed were actually what indeed really bothers lots of people, were how, would some officers be facing court-martial just because they were aggrieved with some specific situations. Now, press the rewind button. Well, 2 days ago, well, we heard about some attacks also in Borno State and then Yobe State. Well, that also sort of hit up the security atmosphere with the governor of Borno State coming out yesterday to make very, very strong words, and indeed coming out to even ask people to go out and defend themselves. Charles, the question lots of Nigerians are asking right now is, what exactly is the motive of this sweeping change? Is it about regime protection, or perhaps to take adequate measures and indeed enforce Nigeria's security architecture? Right. Well, quite unfortunate, you want to see, if it's about strengthening, though they might have told us it's about strengthening the security architecture, but for months, for years, Nigerians have complained about the state of insecurity, and we didn't see these changes. And so lots of people are beginning to look towards the latter. Perhaps this was something that did have to come out from the presidency for sake of regime protection. Right.
Okay. Well, briefly, what do we know about the new Chief of Defense Staff, General Olufemi Oluyede, and the other newly appointed service chiefs?
Well, we know exactly that he was promoted, or perhaps you want to say he's one of those who survived the tsunami, having been promoted as from the post of the Chief of Army Staff to the post of the Chief of Defense Staff. Fortunately, you want to say for him, you know, he actually got the position of the Army Chief after the later Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Lagbaja, did pass away. So, well, he didn't really spend too much time on the position as Chief of Army Staff, and perhaps, well, maybe the presidency has seen enough to have some faith in him to now begin to take that position. Interestingly, the post of the Chief of Defense Staff, like we all used to say, is about, it's a diplomatic position. Well, most of these positions, by the way, are appointments. And so, although the president has the prerogative to appoint whoever he wants to appoint, but then he must, you know, have some people who are, you know, definitely going to fit the shoes. But first of all, the person has to have a very good understanding of what it takes.
Right.
For example, for the Chief of Army Staff, lots of times comes from the infantry, or perhaps from the armor regiment. And then also for the Chief of Air Staff, you know, most times it's always given to, you know, one of the most senior pilots. And then for the Chief of Naval Staff, he must be somebody who is very, very familiar with naval operations, must have captained some of the major vessels. And so that's exactly what we've seen. These persons are some of the best, or some of the most senior officers in this country, most of them from the 39th, the 39th, you know, I'm trying to get that exact words. But then the most important thing is for Oloide, he now gets to combine his work, not just as a military man, you know, with a whole lot of diplomacy. He's going to be relating a whole lot with the Sahel, other
Right.
countries in Africa, like what we saw the Chief of Defense, former Chief of Defense Staff, Christopher Musa, did do.
Okay. Ferdinand, thank you very much indeed. Ferdinand Duruoha is Arise Chief of Correspondence.